Ride like a back wheel.
Welcome to another Vital MTB review video. In this video, we're going to compare and race the 2020 Specialized Demo 2.9 and the new 2021 Mullet Demo. Which one's faster? Which one's better? We're going to chat with one of our best testers to find out. Game on. Here to help us today is fast man Brian Buell. Now, Brian's had time on multiple generations of the Demo, and we're going to chat through some of the key differences and comparisons on the trail. Now, Brian, the most obvious update is a switch to the mullet setup. We've got a 27.5 out back now, a 29 out front versus having dual 2.9. Where are you finding that to be a big advantage?
I'm finding it to be a big advantage when you get in the tight, kind of obvious in terms of steeps and tight riding. That's where the mullet's been shining, and compared to the 29er, which likes to go fast. However, you might have to compensate when things get a little bit tight and steep.
So when you talk about tight, are you talking just tight slappy turns kind of scenarios?
Yeah.
Or tight rock maneuvers?
Yeah, when the turns are tight radius, increasing radius turns even, or just kind of wiggling through the trees, and yeah, just, you know, basic tight maneuvering.
Now, where do you find the 29er to be an advantage?
When you're going straight down the fall line.
Okay.
Going real fast. It's super stable. It you know, fast-paced turns, for me, you know, more what a World Cup, you know, is, which has a lot of that. But then again, that's, you know, that's also probably because I'm a little bit bigger in stature. I'm about 6'1" in terms of height, so my riding style and my just kind of body compensation and build probably lends itself a little bit better to the 29er for all-out race pace.
What about through the really rough sections where you're just smashing through a bunch of rocks? Do you find a big difference between the two bikes?
Yeah, just from the last few days of riding here, doing some close comparison, I have found that the 29er, for me personally, is just a little bit more stable, a little bit more confidence inspiring when you're going through those rough sections. You can just kind of dig your heels in and let the bike just do its thing. Whereas the mullet setup, for me, yeah, you just feel the smaller wheel in the back just a little bit more. It's not quite as planted through a line. You can feel it get jostled around just a little bit.
Now, one of the cool things is this bike actually has the ability to go from short, middle to long in the rear end, which is new from the previous bike. So you can run 27.5 in the shortest setting. You can do a 27.5 or a 2.9 in that middle setting, and then the 2.9 in the longest setting. So you kind of have the full range. That also, in addition to adjusting the chainstay length, adjust the BB height by about 5 millimeters depending on the move. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that makes a difference?
Yeah, I think it's intriguing. I need to play around with it more, and you know, I've been in the stock position, the shorter position, so I think that things might improve a little bit if I, you know, lengthen the wheelbase, drop the bottom bracket just a little bit. It might make the bike feel a little bit more planted at speed, a little bit more confidence inspiring, just like the 29er provides. So I'm interested to give that a go.
So let's chat about some spec changes. In addition to the move to the mullet setup, they've also made some slight tweaks here and there. So one of the biggest differences is the suspension, right? You're going from Öhlins to RockShox. How are you finding that?
Yeah, I was trying to pay more attention just to the bike itself and the wheel size, not necessarily too much to the spec, but it's really hard not to.
Right.
I think the Öhlins definitely has a little bit more of a robust setup, especially with the larger stanchions up front in comparison to the 35 mil on the Boxer. It just feels a little bit heavier duty versus the Boxer setup, and they're both coil. So the rear ends feel relatively similar. I think it really just kind of comes down to the front fork. It just performs a little bit differently, and that could also lend itself to you know, riding just, you know, a little bit differently as well when you do a comparison side by side. So if they were both the same setup, things might change a little bit. But we're here with what, you know, we're running what we brung. So yeah, the Boxer, there's a little bit more compliance in terms of on trail, feels not quite as stiff, the build itself, and also just how I have it set up. I don't have a stack of tokens or anything in there yet, right. But currently it rides real nice, but when the going gets tough, it gets a little bit squirmy in my opinion.
Okay, another big spec change, and it's kind of a slight spec change, but they've gone from a 2.6 inch tire on the front to a 2.3. What do you think about that?
I think I also prefer the 2.6 on the front. We're out here in Durango. We're riding Purgatory where it is very dry, very dusty.
Right.
So you get that little bit of duff on top, kitty litter on concrete, and just having that wider tire I think lends itself to just better traction. So I prefer the 2.6, the wider tires. Now the 2.35 front and rear, it's consistent on the mullet bike. So the braking points after riding it for a few days, I can kind of really dial in when it starts to drift out, and I've gained confidence. However, it's a little bit less composed of a ride just because I feel like that front tire is a little bit narrower than the 29er itself.
What about that 220 front rotor? Are you enjoying that on the new
Okay,
bike? Yeah.
That's like probably one of the biggest, you know, when you're looking at the spec here, I feel like that was one of the things that I appreciated the most up front. At first I thought it was a 200 rotor, and then I was starting to poo-poo, and I'm like, wait, they gave me a $180 in the rear and 200, but then, you know, I looked more closely and I was excited to see, as a dude that's 180 pounds, 6'1", that I have a lot of stopping power up front. I really appreciate that. I think that pretty much all bikes that are downhill spec should be at 220.
So one of the big claims that Specialized has is with the move to this style of rear suspension linkage, it has a little bit more rearward axle path, and because of that, it's better on square edges. How do you find it on square edges? Is it harsh at all?
No, it hasn't been harsh, and I ran it through some square edges the other day, and the only thing that I heard was the wheel screaming at me. I didn't really feel the bike hang up. I didn't feel myself pitching over the front, so the bike continued to move forward at a pretty even pace, and I just kind of blasted through it. So I didn't feel any axle path hang up, so I think the bike was doing the job.
All right, Brian, which one do you think is fastest?
Well, we're here in Durango. We're on the World Cup track. It's a good mixture of real fast, some of the fastest, most wide open sections of trail, but then you get into some really tight turns and real steep stuff. So I think it's about a 50-50 mix in terms of what both bikes are really good at. So I think it's a bit of a toss-up, but for me, I think the confidence that I've gained over the last few days riding, I'm going to lean towards the 29er just because it lends itself to my riding style a little bit more in body shape and size. So I'm going to go with the 29er for the win this weekend, but in the past I've been pleasantly surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if that isn't the case, so we'll see.
All right, guys, so here we go. We're going to do 4 runs, 2 on each bike, and we're going to show you the best run on each bike. Let's do this thing.
All right, so lap 1, we had the Demo 29 with a time of 3 minutes 21 seconds and 3:21:09. Run 2, we were on the Demo Mullet with a time of 3 minutes 9 seconds, 0.54. And then the third lap on the Demo 29, I clocked in at 3 minutes 10 seconds, 0.12. And the time that takes the cake of the day was the last lap on the Demo Mullet with 3 minutes 7 seconds, 0.57. There was a 2.5 second gap between the Demo 29 and the Demo Mullet. I think the reason being was I got offline on my Demo 29er lap and I dumped serious speed in a section where that shouldn't happen. So what I really felt like on the Demo 29 was it was incredibly stable at speed. However, top to bottom, a little bit harder to hold on to, probably due to the stiffer suspension. Now, run number 4, I got my fastest lap on the Demo Mullet, and I think it was attributed to slightly softer setup, and that allowed me to have less fatigue and endure throughout the day and have the fastest time of the day last run when I knew the course maybe a little bit better and was just allowing myself to look ahead a little bit more, and that's kind of how it went down. The Demo 29er didn't get quite as fair of a shakeout as maybe it could have. I still think that it's one of the faster bikes that you could swing a leg over and try to compete at a World Cup. However, at the end of the day, the Mullet might just be the better all-around bike that somebody can order online or at a bike shop, swing a leg over and be competitive right off the bat on any given course.
All right, guys, that's a wrap from Durango at Purgatory Mountain Resort.
It's been super interesting comparing the Mullet versus the 29 setup. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Be sure to smash that like button, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the trails.